These 3D printed Stormtrooper helmets made with free STL files were made very differently. In this video, I will show you some of the different methods and techniques I used to build and finish them. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. When I was a child, I always wanted a Stormtrooper helmet. Sadly, I never got one. But now I'm a man-child, and I can make my own. Every time I start a new 3D printed project, the first thing I do is search for high-quality free STL files. I ended up finding 2 Stormtrooper helmet files that I liked, one from the original trilogy, and this first order Stormtrooper helmet. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to print, so I did the only sensible thing I could think of. I flipped a coin, then I decided to print both. Normally when I find a helmet file, I end up having to increase the size. These helmets were so big that I ended up sizing them down. Be sure to measure your head to size your helmet correctly before printing. I remixed Uncle Jesse's cosplay caliper and added measurements on the tool to make it easy to do so. For the original trilogy helmet, I printed it on my Bamboo P1S. It's too big for the printer, so I had to print it in pieces. For the first order helmet, I was barely able to get it to fit, but I was able to print it in one piece on my Ender 3 Max Neo. I finished the print on the P1S in about a day and a half. Actual print time was about 17 hours. And the Ender, well, after changing settings and lowering the print quality to speed it up, it still took about 4 days to print. At least I was able to fit these small parts on the Bamboo. After everything was printed, I needed to connect all the parts for the original Stormtrooper helmet. I used a soldering iron to melt the parts together. I tested different methods of welding parts together in another video. Melting the seams together with the soldering iron was my favorite method out of all the ones that I tried. It's very easy to do and you get a really strong bond. For both helmets, I had to smooth them out to prep them for painting. I used an oscillating tool to sand down the very rough areas. To cut down on a lot of the sanding time, I like to apply a few different methods. I start with a couple coats of filler primer. Then I apply Bondo in the areas that need the most work. Some areas don't need as thick of a layer. For these areas, I mix the Bondo spot putty with some acetone. You get more coverage and it's quicker to apply it using a brush. Then I use filler primer again. You still need to sand between each step, so this doesn't eliminate sanding, but it cuts it down quite a bit. I know I'm going through these steps very quickly. There was a lot of things to go over with making these helmets, but I do have other videos that go over these things more in detail. So after this video, be sure to check them out in my 3D printed helmet playlist. Okay, let's continue. Once I was happy with the finish on the helmets, they were ready for paint. For the original Stormtrooper helmet, I gave it a weathered look. I wanted to have some areas with chip paint. To do this, you need to start with a base color over the whole helmet. This is the color where you want to show where the white paint is chipped away. I went with the satin gray. You can also go with a black, a metallic silver, or any other color you want to show underneath. Next, you need to cover the areas where you want the paint to chip away. I find what works best is just to use white toothpaste. It's very easy to apply. You just paint it on with a paintbrush. After the toothpaste dries, you paint the helmet. I apply 2 coats of a white satin spray paint. And once that paint dries, I scrape off the areas with the toothpaste using my fingernail. It comes off very easily. I'm really happy with how it turned out. For some of the details, I used a Cricut to make stencils. It was much easier than trying to paint it by hand. I'll put the stencil files I made in the video description. I painted a few more details. Some of the areas I did paint by hand. There were also a few small parts to add as well. I painted the filters in silver. I also cut out a circle on the Cricut to cover the mesh. Then I used the same toothpaste trick for the chipped paint. And then painted the whole thing black. Once the paint dried, I scraped off the areas with the toothpaste and took off the sticker. I'm definitely happy with these. Then I glued on the filters and the rest of the parts. I also made some screw heads in Tinkercad. It was a small detail missing from the helmet files, but an easy fix. Now I wanted to make the helmet look dirty. The plan was simple. Mix some acrylic paint to get a few shades of brown. Paint it in all the crevices. Wipe it down with wet, then dry paper towels. Then go over the whole helmet with watered down paint and wipe again. But to be honest, I was doing a terrible job. I rushed through it, plus trying to film it at the same time doesn't help. Luckily, this process is pretty forgiving. You can wipe off the paint and try it again. I was still happy with how it looked in the end. For the first order helmet, I wanted a cleaner look. I started with a couple coats of white satin paint. Then I taped off the areas to paint the black. I recommend using frog tape for this. It's much better than blue tape if you want to get clean lines. I also use some packing materials that I get from way too many Amazon orders. I want to make sure I don't get any overspray. Now I hit it with a couple coats of black satin paint. After the black paint dries, it's time to remove the tape and packing material. I sped this up quite a bit. I'm sure you don't want to watch me doing this in real time. I was really excited when I saw how it was turning out with the black and white paint areas. Definitely happy with the result. And to get a gloss finish, I apply 2 coats of a gloss clear enamel spray. I printed, painted, and added the gloss spray to the last few parts. Once they were dry, I glued them on. These files also included a mesh for the front. I printed that in TPU so that it's very flexible and easy to form to the helmet. I also split it into 2 pieces. The mesh needs to be cut to fit inside. I cut one half to fit, then used it as a template to cut the other half. Now I put one of the halves in place and then glue it in with a hot glue gun. Then I do the same with the other half. And here it is with the mesh in place. For both helmets, I add these airsoft helmet pads. You just apply the Velcro and then add the pads into the helmet. I put Amazon affiliate links in the video description for these and everything else I used in the video. These links help me fund future videos. The last thing you need to do is add the visors. I have a whole nother video that goes over how to make it with these clear plastic sheets and window tinting. Here are the finished Stormtrooper helmets from A New Hope and The Force Awakens. I found both sets of files for free on printables, and they were both made by Keep the Box. Links to these files and everything else you need is in the video description. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helps you in your next 3D printed project. If you want to see more videos like it, please like and subscribe, and check this out next. Thank you for watching.